Next guest will be giving a talk on the topic of allergy and hay fever, and perhaps look some of the herbal ways where you can try and address some of those concerns. Dr Dilis Clare is a GP and herbalist. She's based in Galway and she joins us on the line. Doctor, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for joining us.
Beautiful day, isn't it?
It is a beautiful day. It's also rather chilly and cold. And I have to ask you, first of all, is it not a bit soon to be thinking about a hay fever?
And I'll tell you why it's not a bit soon, because in order to prevent the worst excesses in the least expense possible and the least discomfort is to start using the herbs 1 month before you usually get your hay fever symptoms.
Okay.
So coming up to Easter is most people's hay fever starts in April or May. So now is the time to start taking your hay fever herbs.
If nothing else, thinking of summer, although I realise it's a bad part of summer for people with hay fever, but thinking of summer might warm you up a little bit.
But there's nothing worse than a lovely sunny day and it ruined by your hay fever allergies. If you think about prevention, what you want to do is to strengthen up your mucous membranes so that when the pollen does hit them, they're much stronger, rather than waiting until the whole inflammatory reaction and then you're always playing from the hind foot.
Playing catch up,
so
exactly,
that's the thinking behind it, and it's absolutely sensible. Even the drugs that you take for the preventive drugs, you take them before the hay fever season starts in order to have a dampened down effect. But what we would like to do is, because the good news of this is if you strengthen all the mucous membranes in your nasal system, you're also going to strengthen all the mucous membranes all along your gut. And 1/3 of Irish people have gut problems, either from bloating, distension, the irritable bowel. So it's a nice little side effect, isn't it?
It's a good benefit, absolutely. How can we do that, though?
Full of iron and minerals and,
How can we do that with herbs? Because that's what you're advocating.
The common herbs that we use include things like nettle, ribwort, chamomile, eyebright and elderflower. And we have them in a tea. You can use the ones, everybody should be picking the nettles as soon as they come out because they're full of protein and iron and minerals in any case. So it's a good thing to recommend to people. And also the garlic when it starts coming up. Put it in your soups and stews and casseroles. But the problem is compliance. We all have great intentions, don't we? We all think, I'm going to do that now. So after 20 years of being in Galway next year, I have decided that I'm going to solve the problem. So what I've done is I've put the blend of the teas, which I've had for many years and many people swear by them. But what I've done is I've put them in a 3-teaspoon sachet. And you get a 2-week or a 1-month supply, and you just put the sachet in your flask or your big cup, and you keep topping it up with water, and you keep drinking it, and then you throw the tea bag away.
And that's the way of one way of addressing this.
We also do it loose, which is a bit less expensive because obviously I don't have to pay somebody to actually make the product. But I'll also be giving a lot of the science and evidence, and the science and evidence applies to hay fever is because it's topical at this time of the year or coming up to it, but also the same thinking behind how to manage allergies, whether it's eczema or asthma or all of the other urticaria, something which is a terrible problem for people, and there's really very little in the medical bag. Okay. In the 40 years since I've been in practice, these conditions have escalated.
And why do you think that is? Is that because of pollutants?
We don't know. It's happening whether it's in the Hebrides or the west coast of Clare or London.
So it's not just an urban thing then?
It's not just an urban thing, although the urban thing particularly contributes to asthma. A lot of it is, I would say, a fair bit of it is attributable to sugar. So I'll also be covering in the lecture next Tuesday, which is at 6:30, by the way, just so that we found that actually works better for people, especially in the winter. It's 6:30 to 8:30, I think. Okay. And it's in the hospital grounds. Everybody knows UCHG hospital grounds.
I'll reiterate that at the end,
grounds, So what I do is it's also a lot of the food, nourishing, how to look after all the hygiene to do with all the nasal passages and strengthen them. But also if you tighten leaky gut and irritable bowel. It also has a secondary effect on things like eczema and asthma.
Okay. Going back to maybe just kind of in general terms, you're obviously you're advocating the herbal approach, but you are a GP, and I know that you would work with kind of orthodox medicine as well. How much really can herbs and natural remedies do for these conditions, for hay fever, for eczema, for asthma, for other allergies as well?
I would say a huge amount, and the biggest reason is when I prescribe the inhalers and all the rest of it, they dampen down the inflammation, they dampen down the response, but they don't do anything for the actual condition. There's no healing involved.
They tackle the symptoms and not the cause.
They tackle the symptoms. And they do so very effectively. And it's very important that people stay on their medication while they have symptoms, because these symptoms can be very disabling and disruptive for people's lives. So the collaborative approach, the nice thing about the herbal approach is for severe problems, it often brings them into the moderate in conjunction with the medication. The moderate, it often brings them into the mild, and the mild, it often resolves just by itself. Moderate to severe problems, it's a collaborative approach with your doctor and with the medication. Mild to moderate, we're hoping, while still taking your medication, to eventually wean down and off medication. And for mild problems, you just avoid the hassle. You wouldn't normally take medication for it, or you might from time to time take an antihistamine.
But you talked about the issues with regards to people sticking with the natural approach. I mean, is it a case that theoretically herbs can be very effective, but in practice that's not always the case?
Where people take herbs compliantly for allergies, it's rare that I find that there's no benefit. And that's quite honestly. Yeah. So long as you settle your mind to actually give this. But the problem is if people do it for 2 or 3 months and then 2 or 3 weeks and then they stop. What you need to do is for 4 to 6 weeks. Okay. Starting now, 4 to 6 weeks. If there's no benefit after 6 weeks, I hang up my hat. I won't eat it.
Fair enough.
It's indigestible.
And it's just, I suppose it's part of, I mean, obviously everything is part of a balanced approach and what have you, but I, as well as if you're somebody who's minded to go down a natural approach to these things, you're probably going to have a more kind of healthy lifestyle and healthy diet as well anyway.
Well, if you're trying to do this on a diet of chips and sugar, you're weighing the odds pretty much. But the vast majority of Irish people, their diet needs tweaking. The sugar has crept in just, relentlessly, and going to the shops now is a barrage. You have to face a whole, obstacle course to get at any kind of decent food. But ignoring all of that, I mean, a lot of Irish people still have their good dinner every day, and the treats have become too regular. That's the problem. The treats have become not treats, but kind of everyday events. Schools have helped enormously with not having sugar allowed for lunch and, making a lot of progress. I think people are becoming a lot more aware. We have a very positive outlook. If you put in all the good food, you're not looking for the sugar nearly as much. We kind of have a very proactive kind of, get in there with all the good stuff, and the rest of it will look after itself. Okay. So you don't need to be too preachy about it.
We know that, yes. No,
and little things make a big difference. Somebody moving from, an instant breakfast cereal to even ready break, which is finely milled but unprocessed, and then to porridge. That's a huge difference. You don't have to go to the pinhead organic. These things are incremental. And to get people onto a very general good food most of the time for most days. I'm an 80% kind of person. Get 80% right, and the rest is not that important. Get the 80% right.
That's fair. Do you think generally are people buying this message? Are they interested in the natural approach? We hear about the influence of big pharma and all that they can do as well, obviously.
Oh, wait until you get me talking about the book that I'm writing. I'm going into that in a big way, and it's not that there's no big enemy out there. It's undue and out of balance degree of influence, so that we've been groomed to think that there's no other possibility, or that any other possibility has to prove itself by the same measures as toxic drugs, because all drugs are designed to get past our safety mechanisms and overwhelm our internal physiology. That's the nature of them. That's not them being bad guys. That's just what they do.
Yeah.
The pharma industry is entitled to earn profits on their shares as every other industry. As I say, it's all in clear view. But in the process of all of that, the bureaucracy provides only one kind of medicine. The local resource is only one kind of medicine. So it's to balance that and to let people know, like you were saying, well, does it really work? And I mean, if I was to tell you all of the science behind it, you'd think, oh my God, she suddenly got very clever. Like there's flavones, flavonoids, catechins, anthocyanidins, procyanidins, resveratrol, and they alter the balance of the Th1, Th2 balance to decrease the antigen-specific IgE antibody formation.
I'm going to pretend I got every word of that and understood it all.
That sounds like, oh, Dr. Clare is very clever. And I am, of course. But that describes the ingredients of chamomile, nettle, ribwort. Elderberries, outdo the lot of them. I mean, they're so beautiful, and they're full of protein, lectins, fibre, vitamins, antioxidants, and minerals.